Hi, it's Ashton.
And it is John. What is up? We're back from the reaction video. In today's video, we're going to be reacting to...
Are North Africans white, black, or Middle Eastern? Genetics of Egypt, Morocco, Algeria, and more. By the channel Muscleman.
Muscleman, go and subscribe if you guys like this content. It's very important to support the channels you love. This was a suggestion from Matthew Man. Matthew, thank you so much for your support. We do appreciate you guys.
Are these his videos?
I don't think so. You guys can also help support the channel. Click on that link down below in the description if you throw it on through Streamlabs. We're going to let you pick on the next videos we react to. Just keep it under 10 minutes. Include video link, title, and your email. And let's get to this video. The last one did shed some light on the whole Caucasian thing and where the term comes from.
Of ethnic and racial identification in the modern countries of the Maghreb and Egypt, such a hotly debated topic. Today, we're going to be taking a look at the historic and modern-day genetics of the population of North Africa, which regions influence them, and how the people currently identify. When referring to the region of North Africa, the countries of Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, Libya, and Egypt are always included, while places like Sudan, Western Sahara, and Mauritania are usually included, and on occasion the northern portions of a few sub-Saharan African countries like Mali, Niger, and Chad are also included from a geographic and cultural perspective. The genetic history of North Africa has certainly fluctuated greatly ever since humans first inhabited the region around 45,000 years ago, with the first humans most likely crossing over from the Arabian Peninsula through modern-day Suez in Egypt. Therefore, the native people of North Africa were most closely related to the Middle Eastern populations.
Wait, did he say 45,000 years ago? I've never heard a number that high for human discovery. The highest I've heard is 200,000.
Yeah.
The Levant, but created their own gene pool after thousands of years of separation and adaptation to their new environment. During the subsequent waves of migration between the Middle East and North Africa, a common linguistic and ethnic identity between the Arabs and the North African natives, largely known as Berbers, was established, with modern Berber languages being Afro-Asiatic, loosely related to Arabic, Hebrew, and the Habesha languages of the Horn of Africa. The Sahara Desert has, in the past and modern day, served as an effective barrier between the peoples and fauna of North Africa and the much larger region of sub-Saharan Africa, although that doesn't mean that there was no contact, as West African DNA is very common in modern North Africans, not only through the slave trade, but through merchants and travelers from places like the Mali or Songhai empires of West Africa. As most people know, the entirety of the Mediterranean region of...
Look at him quick. He's twitching really bad. Like, is he okay?
Yeah, he does that pretty often.
You guys, the cat is in my lap right now. His jaw was going like this all over the place, and it was making this weird noise. And his eyes and his nose, like everything on his face was twitching. That scared me.
North Africa was annexed by the Roman Empire from early on, but one thing people might not have expected is that there's actually a tentative connection between modern Maghrebis and Germanic peoples through the ancient group known as the Vandals, who traveled from modern Germany to establish colonies and kingdoms in the Iberian Peninsula and North Africa. Now, seeing how the population of the provinces of the Maghreb in the Roman Empire were around 2 to 3 million at the time of collapse, and the Vandals invaded and established a kingdom with around 100,000 settlers and soldiers, this would mean that up to 5% of the gene pool of modern Maghrebis could be of Germanic origin, seeing how the Vandals were essentially completely assimilated into the future societies. Not only had Germanic peoples settled in and assimilated into the Maghreb, but also Italic peoples from the Italian peninsula during Roman occupation. These Latin-speaking peoples established their own language and culture in the Maghreb, and actually had the beginnings of a Latin-based language similar to Spanish or Italian, and the European influence can greatly be seen in the region, especially places like Tunisia, where up to 5 or 10% of the gene pool is of early Latin origin. Ancient Greece and Egypt have been strongly connected culturally for thousands of years, and although the modern-day countries of Greece and Egypt might not have much in common in any major capacity, it's easy to see the relationship between the two from a historic perspective by looking at architecture and place names like Alexandria or Thebes. The Greek presence was especially apparent during antiquity with the rise of Alexander's empire and the Roman Empire, with some places having up to 30% Greek origin and a largely Hellenized culture, but gradually waned over the centuries, with the last major Greek presence in the region being in the early 1900s. Today, around 5% of the Egyptian gene pool is of Greek or ancient Macedonian origin. The appearance of ancient Egyptians has been heavily debated by different groups with various agendas, but in the past few thousand years, Egypt had been inhabited by Afro-Asiatic peoples related to Arabs, Berbers, and other Semites, speaking their own language that would be considered mutually unintelligible with modern Egyptian Arabic, and contrary to popular belief, ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs were not exactly an alphabet in the same way that the Latin, Arabic, or Cyrillic scripts were used, but it did evolve into and influence some of the world's earliest writing systems used in the Middle East, such as Phoenician. Ancient Egyptian is currently a dead language, although Egypt's sizable Christian minority, making up 10 to 15% of the population, known as the Copts, use a language known as Coptic in religious ceremonies for liturgical reasons, and Coptic is largely believed to be descended from the pre-Arabic Egyptian language.
That's crazy, wow.
The genetic makeup of the region was greatly altered following the Arab conquest and mass settlement following the expansion of Islam in the 7th and 8th centuries, with the majority of native North African Berber groups, as well as the Germanic Vandals and Italic population, either being wiped out or assimilated with the new Middle Eastern Arab population. Today, the majority of North African countries have a population described as Arab-Berber, meaning a mix between the native Berber and Arab population, and this is certainly giving them a unique look, with places like Tunisia having a dominant Arab culture, with the population having the highest proportion of Arab blood of any country of the Maghreb. Migration was not one way, of course, with the large migration heading to the Arabian Peninsula and the rest of the Middle East, especially in recent years with Egyptian and Maghrebi migrant workers.
He's got a Twins shirt on.
I know, yeah.
That's a bit odd. We're from Minnesota, guys, so Twins is the Minnesota baseball team. So that's pretty cool.
Heading to places like Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Kuwait.
Pants
Now,
too.
what's interesting about modern Egyptians and other North Africans today is that depending on the person, they may or may not identify with other ethnic Arabs from places like the Levant or the Arabian Peninsula, even if they are Arab-speaking as well. Although the Arab language is actually quite a complicated subject, as Arab speakers from different parts of the Middle East and North Africa might not be able to understand each other, with Egyptian Arabic sort of being an intermediate dialect between that spoken in Arabia and the Maghreb, especially considering that the majority of Arabic language motion pictures are filmed in Egypt. Skin color and facial features are anything but uniform in North Africa, of course, with skin color largely getting darker the further south you look in the region, mostly due to the sub-Saharan African blood and environmental adaptations to the hot, sunny climate.
Yes.
The native people of North Africa are known as Berbers, and as mentioned earlier, there are also an Afro-Asiatic people group distantly related to Arabs, but their phenotype can vary to include people of all skin colors. Some Berber groups, like the Tuaregs of southern Algeria and northern Mali and Niger, are very dark in appearance, being the most southern group, and other groups, like the Kabyles of northern Algeria, are very fair, with a significant proportion having light eyes or hair, with many even being able to pass for European. There's been a large effort in recent years, especially in the Maghrebi countries of Morocco and Algeria, to reclaim their native North African Berber identity, and even many of Arab Berber descent are beginning to create a new Maghrebi identity for themselves. One of the more recent events to influence the North African gene pool was the rise of the Ottoman Empire in the 14th century, when ethnic Turks from the Anatolia region migrated in large numbers during the Ottoman occupation in North African countries. And although it's rare to find full-blooded Turks in North Africa, in the Maghreb up to 20% of the population has at least some Turkish ancestry, and those of half Turkish, half native descent are called Kalugli, who could have both Berber, Arab, and Turkish ancestry. There was never any large repatriation effort for Kaluglis after the fall of the Ottomans, and their descendants largely integrated into the Arab Berber society. I've talked about Sudan in previous videos, and it's a very tricky situation categorizing their people, since the racial situation of Sudan is anything but homogeneous. The original people groups of Sudan were actually of Nilo-Saharan origin, mostly known as the Nubians, similar to the people of modern South Sudan, and it wasn't until the Islamic Arab invasion and conquest from the north that Sudanese people began to have a more Arab identity. Modern Sudanese Arabs can have a huge range in phenotype, with some having a more Middle Eastern appearance, while some still retain the majority of their sub-Saharan African genes, although full-blooded natives still do exist in large numbers located in the west and south of the country, which was one of the main reasons that South Sudan decided to break away from the north and create their own government, surprisingly with little intervention from the north. The country of Mauritania, on the other end of the continent, is in a very similar position to this, with the majority of its population being Afro-Arabs, albeit with more North African admixture. Perhaps the most recent event to influence North African demography was the European colonization of the region during the scramble for Africa and before. Algeria had been a part of the French Empire since the 1820s and was actually one of the most well-integrated colonies of any European power, with the population largely being bilingual in French and Arabic, or French and a Berber language. Ever since incorporation into France, hundreds of thousands of European settlers began to settle into the region of French North Africa, which included Algeria, Tunisia, and parts of Libya and Morocco, and during the latter half of occupation, French authorities actually allowed a handful of native North Africans from their colonies to settle in metropolitan France. The European North African population, known as Pieds Noirs, eventually numbered in the millions in all of the North African nations, making up around 15% of North Africa at its height. However, following independence of the Maghrebi countries, the European population was almost entirely forced to evacuate all North African countries and headed back to France, and they left a very small genetic imprint on North Africa, seeing how their presence in the region was largely fleeting. Although on occasion a French soldier or official would marry a native woman, and some even converted to Islam, integrating with the native populace. The people of North Africa have been influenced by many, if not all, of the surrounding peoples that encompass them, and because of this, North Africa has one of the most diverse ranges of phenotype of any place in Africa or the Middle East, with its citizens ranging from black to white to Middle Eastern and every combination in between. Again, it's important to realize that North Africans may or may not identify with the Middle East or ethnic Arabs, and that each country has a unique history and are not all universal monoliths. I hope you learned something new about the region of North Africa today. Be sure to let me know your thoughts on the region. And as always, this has been Mason.
Definitely did. So North Africa is really more of a melting pot versus the rest of it, where it's been affected by everything around it, like he just stated like 30 seconds ago.
Right.
But I mean, they're white, they're black, they're everything in that area. It's not as simple as it seems, and there's a high level of diversity depending on where you go, and that's a pretty crazy thing because as far as it goes when it comes to genetics, the more you mix, the stronger your gene pool becomes.
Yeah. Definitely.
Less health conditions usually, and you become more resilient to.
Is that the proper word?
Yeah, you become more resilient to, I guess, the damages of a life. That's a way to put it. Like in dogs, the more you breed them, because purebreds are always very weak to certain things.
Right,
and then
like
when you mix
there's a couple
them,
things,
and they become much stronger towards being resilient and being able to handle different things, because your genes generally want to become stronger, they don't want to become weaker. That's the whole thing, is that natural selection, all that, you become stronger instead of weaker. But that video did break it down quite amazingly in a term that I didn't know. I didn't know there's any difference between North Africa, Middle Africa, or South Africa. I mean, what would I know? We don't go into that really as far as our schooling.
No, we don't.
It briefly touches anything in Africa. So this is a very enlightening little experience. That's awesome. Guys, go like, comment, share, and subscribe for the channel that is Masa Man. It's important to support the channels you love. Sorry we couldn't get more feedback during it, but our heat is on, and as you can hear like right now,
it's loud.
We're hitting 30% max audio just off of the sound of the fan coming from our vents, which is like ridiculous. Leave comments down below about what you thought. It's a very interesting topic, I believe, but...
Do you ever want to go to Egypt?
I think it'd be cool, yeah.
I do.
The pyramids? Oh my god, yes. It'd be so cool to see those. You can get to see the pyramids. That's like one of the 7 wonders of the world right there.
Yeah, I definitely want to go there.
And with that being said, guys, like, comment, share, and subscribe for Masa Man. Peace out.
Bye.